Hey everyone, in today's video we are talking all about collaboration and working together in kindergarten, first and second grade. After 2+ years of distance learning and different expectations in the classroom of how your students can be grouped together, are they wearing masks, etc., things looked quite different. Now it's time to really review what teamwork and collaboration and all those skills might look like in your classroom, especially if your students have really missed out on them in the past couple years. If you're ready to hear these 5 tips, give this video a like, subscribe to my channel, and let's get started. Alright, tip number 1 is going to be pretty straightforward, but it's probably the most important tip I have because without it, you won't have any of the other tips, and that is to create plenty of opportunities for students to learn and explore together. Collaboration doesn't just happen completely out of nowhere. You need to actually go ahead and create times and opportunities for your students to work together. So you have to decide what that's going to look like in your classroom, and there's a few different ways you can do that. You will want to ask yourself, how are my students going to work together throughout the day? Basically, in each time block and each subject block that I have, I create an opportunity for my students to work either in a partnership or with a group in some way or another. So starting from morning meeting, we are collaborating because we're all listening together, we're hearing one another talk. During different times of the day, I might have students do a turn and talk where they are sharing their ideas with one another. And then when they turn back to me, I have them share not just their idea, but I have them share what their partner shared, right? Are they doing good listening, etc. So when we kick off our day at morning meeting, I am having the students collaborate by sitting in a circle. They are all listening to one another. This is where we kind of build up our little classroom community. And then in different subject blocks, I might have students do something like a turn and talk, where I have them share their ideas quickly with one another. But then when they turn back to me, instead of just sharing their own idea, I have them share what their partner said. This, promotes good listening and, a little bit of collaboration there. Later on in the day, I might have students work together with a partner to play a game or do some sort of quick little group work to come up with ideas. For instance, if you're brainstorming ideas for writing, you might want to have a little group of 4 come up with ideas. Maybe one person can be the note taker, or you can simply have them pass around a piece of paper and one marker, and they can each write a brainstormed idea on the paper. It doesn't need to be something big. It can be very simple, like brainstorming, a turn and talk, listening to one another, playing a game together. But you do want to make sure that you are thinking about when are my students working together throughout the day, because again, it doesn't just happen. This also becomes much easier for you as the teacher if you actually group your students in groups of 4 or 6 or in pairs. That way they always have somebody that they're working with. It makes it easier for management too, because if you decide, all right, I want you to brainstorm with a partner, students aren't getting up from their individual desks, finding a partner. They can quickly and easily just turn to the person next to them or talk to the person across from them if they're in a group of 4, and they can go ahead and share their ideas before quickly turning back to you. So tip 1 is to make sure you take the time and plan out times for collaboration within your daily schedule. Okay, tip number 2 is another straightforward one, but again, very necessary, especially in K-2, and that is to explicitly teach what collaboration looks like. Now, whether your students are working with a partner or in a small group, they need to know what does it look like to do this successfully. And basically as the teacher, you want to share what your expectations are to set them up for success. So you want to tell them, if you're working with a partner, what does good listening look like? Does it look different when you're working with a group of 4 people? What about taking turns and sharing? And you might want to go ahead and separate that between like teamwork, working with a partner, and working in a group, because some of those expectations might be slightly different in terms of listening and taking turns. In a group, they might have individual jobs that they're all responsible for to come together. And in a partnership, they might kind of be working a little bit more together at the same time. That's up to you. But in order to set your students up for success, they need to know what you expect of them. So you do want to explicitly teach them, this is how I work together when I'm with a partner. Now, my favorite way for doing this, especially if we're doing like a partner game, is I will have my entire class sit in a circle, and when I'm teaching the game, I will get in the middle and I am one of the players, and then I will have different students come up and play the other round for me. So if we're playing a game that goes back and forth, I will roll the dice once, let's pretend it's a math game. I'll explain what to do, and then I have another student come up, and then this is where I will kind of like point out great things. Oh, I like how you passed that dice right back to me, so that way we can quickly go along. Or I like the way you recorded that on the recording sheet so we can keep track of our work. This is great teamwork, and we're both doing our own jobs to keep us responsible. Another way to explicitly teach about teamwork and collaboration is to use a read aloud, and I actually have a video coming out next week with I think 4, possibly 5, but I think 4 of my favorite read alouds for collaboration in the classroom and teamwork. This is one of my favorites that I'm sharing in that video. It's called A Little Spot of Teamwork. I love the Little Spot books. They're great for like explicit teaching. And in this book, I won't go through the whole thing, but it talks about working together as a team, what it might look like to be a leader. It gives good examples of like your family being a team and how we each have our own different roles, our classroom being a team. Again, a great one to read with your class if you are explicitly teaching them the importance of teamwork and what it might look like. Tip number 3 is going to be to play games in your classroom. Now, there's all different types of games you can play with your students or that your students can play with one another. I have an entire video on how to incorporate more play in the classroom here, and that's going to be some like unstructured play along with some, learning games too, but I talk about the importance of play in the classroom in that video. But in your classroom, you want to make sure your students are playing some games. Now, some of my favorites are my print and play phonics games and my print and play math games. And the phonics games go through, CVC words to digraphs, blends. It goes through a whole bunch of different patterns there. And my math games I have for kindergarten, first and second grade separately, because obviously the math skills are different. I highlighted those games specifically, not only because, they're skill focused, so they are working on a skill that you need your students to work on anyway, so that's great. But also, I think all of them have a winner and a loser, right? They have an ending point. They require students to take turns. They require them to work together. So these are all life skills that are very important for your students. And by having them play a simple game where they have to, they can't cheat, the other person is watching them. And when I have games that have a little spinner, you can get those clear plastic spinners that you put over, which are wonderful, but I actually always prefer to make them use a paperclip and a pencil, because one student actually has to hold the pencil for the other student while they flick the paperclip around to see what they land on. Just a little way to make them work together to be successful. But yes, games, as you know, teach so many different life skills, so it's a great way to kind of teach those life skills, but also while you are reviewing academic skills as well. Okay, tip number 4 is going to be a fun one, especially towards the beginning of the year, and that is going to be to include cooperative activities. Now, at the beginning of the year, you are really building up your classroom community, so I do heavily focus more on these then, but then we also like to do it at the end of the year as well, because we're kind of like wrapping up our year together. So when I say cooperative activities, I'm not talking about a competitive game like I just mentioned in tip number 3, where they're like playing against one another. There's usually a winner and a loser. These are cooperative games where they have to work together in order to succeed. Now, I have shared a bunch of these in the past, so I'm not going to go through each one individually, but I will share kind of where you can find out about them. In fact, I did this whole video right here about building a classroom community and using collaborative games, where I mentioned, I think, 3 specific ones right there. One of them is going to be using those free classroom puzzles that I have, where students silently have to put together a puzzle that looks like a school supply like this, and they have to work with their partner in order to do it. And then in that video, I share a bunch of active ones as well that are really fun and funny. There's one called Towel Flip, where 2 students have to stand together on a towel, and they have to figure out how to flip the towel entirely over without, getting off the towel. And it's good because it's going to bring up some arguments probably. They're going to get a little frustrated. They're going to get giggly. It's really fun. There's another one called Mr. Magoo, where Mr. Magoo or Mrs. Magoo is blind, and the other child will stand behind and put their hands lightly on their shoulder, and they have to guide them to not bump into anything. But these types of like fun activities where students have to work together, it's just a great way to build collaboration and community in your classroom. So that is what the video looks like, and I will link it down below if you want to see more. All right, and tip number 5 is going to be praise and highlight collaboration. If you're spending so much time teaching your students the importance of collaboration and teamwork and explicitly how to do it, you want to make sure you praise your students and show them that you are recognizing the importance of what they're doing. So many times when we are praising or offering feedback, we are doing it academically, which is also great and necessary. But I do like to highlight in front of the class, even if I don't single out a specific student, if they might not like that. I like to highlight things like if I saw a pair of students work through a conflict. That's huge. Your kindergarten, first, and second grade students are going to get in arguments, especially if they're playing games together and just, being normal 6, 7, and 8-year-olds. Of course they're gonna argue. Are they able to work through it? Are they able to listen to one another, respect one another's feelings and emotions? Are they able to come up with a compromise? Are they able to take turns and share and listen to one another? All of those things are things you wanna be on the lookout for, and again, praise them and praise them often. This way students know not only am I doing the right thing, like I'm doing this correctly, but also it's really good that I'm doing this. And again, kind of like tip 1, where you're creating these opportunities, this is more of a teacher tip. It's something that you need to keep top of mind so you can look for it and highlight it on your own. All right, and just to quickly highlight again these 5 tips for teaching students to work collaboratively, we have tip number 1 is create plenty of opportunities for students to learn together. Tip 2, explicitly teach what teamwork and partner work looks like. Tip 3, have students play competitive games. Tip 4, have students do cooperative activities. And tip 5 is to praise positive collaboration when you see it. All right, I think with those 5 top tips, if you keep them top of mind this year, your students will be well on their way to becoming, this idyllic, wonderful, collaborative community. And if not, that's normal, but it will at least help your students, start to get there, right? Instead of just ignoring it and having them work independently. It's a lot of work being a primary teacher, and these are some of the skills that they need and are necessary for life, so keep doing the hard work. As always, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up so I know. Make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click that bell. That way you're notified of every new video. See you in the next one. Bye.